Alright folks, Urban Sentinel here. This video, if you watch it all the way through, by the end of it, you're going to fall into one of four categories. You're going to watch the video and not care and go back to doing what you were doing. You're going to watch the video, not really understand what I'm talking about, but maybe you might do a little research and see what it is that I'm speaking on. You're going to watch the video, know what I'm talking about, and you're not going to like what I have to say. Or lastly, you're going to watch the video, understand exactly what I'm talking about, and you're really not going to like what I have to say. Now, moving on. This video is not about the tragic shooting in Texas. It's not about that. It's not about the shooter. It's not about the firearms that the shooter may or may not have used. It is about America and our culture and our right to own and possess firearms. It is about Americans as a whole facing off against each other at the table, but no one's talking. Or more specifically, no one is listening, because that's where the problem is. We talk all day long. Every time this tragedy happens, you can turn on your TV right now. You can find your CNNs, your MSNBCs. You can put on any of the major news networks, and you will see all of the talking head pundits. They'll have their politicians up there, their bureaucrats up there, their experts on this and experts on that, and they're going to be going back and forth over, the firearms as a whole, the Second Amendment as a whole. They're going to be picking apart every single thing they can, but no one is actually going to be listening, because it's only one side talking to itself, yelling about the other side, and that goes both ways, both pro and against firearm ownership. And as far as the subject goes of Second Amendment, do I believe in the Second Amendment? Yes, but I also believe in all the other amendments. I'm not going to selectively choose which amendment I want to support, because once you single out one for good or bad, you then pose the risk of all the others going away. So just as much as women have the right to vote, that's an amendment. Just as much as Negroes, blacks, minorities are no longer slaves, that's an amendment. You need to support all of them, because every single one of them is cohesive in the entire Constitution. It is a collective part of it. You can't simply say, this is what I focus on and this is all I'm concerned about, because while you're hanging on to that one for dear life, the other ones can get picked apart one by one and changed on you, till what you have in your hand that you've been holding on so preciously for is nothing but dust, and it's gone. And you didn't even realize it, because you were holding on too tight, focused on that one single issue. Now, moving into the subject of laws, pure plain simple, we're going to hear about a cry for more laws. Let's be realistic, and I mean this for people on both sides of the aisle. I mean this for people who say we need more laws, or people who say we have enough laws. One, we do have plenty of laws. There are plenty. There's not a single law in regards to firearm possession, ownership, use, transportation, everything. There's not a single law that doesn't already exist that would have stopped any of these crimes, because the individual that chooses willingly, wantingly, with malicious intent to break that law, and that action there, breaking that law, is pure plain simple. They're aware that what they're going to do is illegal, and they're going to do it anyway. Done. For those that say, well, we still need something, we do, but we need something that is more realistic. We need a way to talk to the community, to each other, and not just simply our neighbor next door, but maybe that's a start. Maybe your neighbor next door is a person who has the opposite view of you. Start there. Maybe you need to go to your community leaders, especially if you're in a city, a metropolitan area, where you have the community leaders that come out whenever there's a tragic shooting of a person of color by the police, or whenever there is a mass shooting of several innocent bystanders that got caught in the crossfire between two gangs having a shootout. Maybe you need to talk to them and say, look, we've had you as our community leader for decades, and yet the problem still persists. What are you doing when you go to City Hall? Or maybe you go to City Hall and say, look, you're telling us that you support us and that you want to stop this and you want to solve this problem, but we've looked at the roster rolls. You've been in office for so many terms. The town council, the aldermen, the state representatives, they've all been sitting in their chairs for so many terms, with the numbers, with the votes, with the manpower to get it done, but yet nothing happens. You can look as an example. You have New York City, when it was under the control of Michael Bloomberg, the founder of, Mayors Against Guns, the basically big piggy bank pocketbook for all of the anti-gun groups. Crime in New York City, firearm crime in New York City, should have been zero under his administration or shortly thereafter with all the money, the millions of dollars that he puts into all these groups. But yet, it's not. Pure plain simple. Throwing money at the problem or writing another law does not solve it. We have to address the issue, the root issue for these crimes. We have to look at the issues of these robberies that occur. What is the cause of those robberies? Where are they? Who are the people doing it? These mass shootings that occur, whether it's at a shopping mall or a school, we have to look at that. And yes, we still have to address the issue that as much as we want to demonize the shooter, as much as we want to make them something other than a human being, they're a human being. They think, they reason, they ration. Even if they are considered by our standards mentally unstable, they were stable enough to commit the crime that they're doing. They know they're not walking into a place where you have an armed guard or armed personnel that could shoot them. If you think about it logically, very few of these mass shootings end with the police killing the shooter. Very few of them. Only in a few cases does it end that way. In majority of cases, when they know that the law enforcement is showing up and they're coming hard and they're coming deep, they drop their weapons. They surrender. They give up because they understand that they do not want to risk injury, maiming, and a slow, painful death the way that they've just committed their act of crime. That is not a person who is mentally unstable. That is a person who is quite stable and quite rational in their actions that they do. They can play unstable once they get to court and hope that they can plead that insanity. But in their actions of surrendering, they know they don't want to happen to them what they just did to the other people. So moving in that understanding, we have to figure out what we as a people can do. Simply saying don't have guns is not going to solve the problem. I'm not going to go through the Department of Justice statistics on all types of violent crime that don't include firearms, because there are hundreds of thousands of those crimes every year that don't involve a firearm versus the small amount that does. I'm not going to get into, semi-automatic, fully automatic, and any of that stuff. You can ban firearms outright. You can say, well, this manufacturer is prohibited from making, selling, distributing firearms in the United States. You can list off the A to Z of every firearm and say no one is allowed to have it. You can give your special classifications of people to have firearms. It's still not going to make a difference. The desire for the individual to commit an act of violence is solely based upon that individual. Making another law for me doesn't do anyone any good because I'm not the one that's going out committing the crime. Making another law for people minding their own business is not going to do any good when the person that is going to commit the crime is going to ignore it anyway. We have to have a better understanding of ourselves as a society. And I hear the arguments of, well, look at the other countries that, don't allow citizens to have firearms. They have much lower crime. They have much lower crime with firearms. That's the thing. They have much lower crime with firearms. You want to do a tally of different types of crimes that go on? You can go into all these countries. And yes, there are some countries that do have significantly lower crime as a whole, but there are also countries where the entire nation's population is less than that of Rhode Island. It has a lot to do with it. The more people you have, the more individuals, independent ideas, the more unique actions and ways of being you're going to have. When you have a large country, again, you can fit Europe, almost the entirety of Central and Western Europe, within the United States. We're talking dozens of countries, each with their own unique laws and personalities and culture in the space that it takes to go from Maine to Missouri. And again, that's going to cause some differences on a social level, on an economic level, everything, because our country is unique, not just simply in its location. It's unique in its entire structure, its entire buildup. We are not Europe. We are not the Middle East. We are not Asia. We are not South America. We're not Africa. We are the United States of America, and our culture is our culture. Yes, there are bits and pieces from all over the world that make that up, but that's the thing. They are bits and pieces put into the blender and put all together. Firearms in our society are a part of our society. To simply say we are going to pull them out and that's going to be that, it's not going to work. That's no different than saying our right to protest, pull that out. No different than saying our individual right to choose to love who we love and do what we choose to do. You can't pull that out. you cannot separate the inherent grain in the fabric of our society. You have to understand and we have to address what that is and move forward from there. And all of it simply comes down to we are still butting heads at the same point. Every time there's a tragedy, we have the politicians getting up saying no more is enough, and they're always willing to point at the other side of the aisle to say it's because of this group here that this still happens. I say no, because if honestly, let's be honest, if they had the intent, the will, and the desire, they would get it done, and it would have been done a long time ago. But it's not. And it's not to say one politician over another politician is, not letting a good tragedy go to waste. But the fact is that no matter how you look at it, restricting the firearms, that's a band-aid. That's a literal band-aid on a bullet wound. It's not going to do anything. Because you can make all the laws you want right now on top of the laws that already exist. If you're not addressing the issue of the individual, if you're not addressing the core, the root of the problem, it doesn't matter what you layer on top, it's still going to bleed through. Demanding that we now have more of this and more of that above what we already have already isn't going to fix it. But on the same aspect, from the other side, simply holding on to the Second Amendment and the flag and saying, this is what made America, and squeezing it tight in your hand, great. But the problem is, at a certain point, you're holding on so tight, it's non-functional. By the time you loosen your grip to look to see that precious thing, just like of mice and men, you killed it on your own. And that's something that a lot of people that support the Second Amendment are failing to see, is that the harder you grip and hang on to it, you're not preserving it, you're not saving it, you are actually strangling your right, your very Second Amendment right, you're strangling it to death because you're not willing to open up, look at it, and let it breathe, let it grow, not get rid of it, not annex it, not dispose of it, not abort it, let it grow. We need to figure a way to look at our rights as individual citizens, that we can exist and we can live without doing harm to each other, but not by punishing those that have not committed a crime, not by punishing those that haven't done anything wrong by law. Looking at those that have done and will do and making the adjustments there, making the punishment fit the crime rather than simply the punishment existing as punishment for that sake. Ignoring the fact that we can look at firearm safety. No one talks about that. Firearm training, a better understanding, teaching children, young people, old people, what it is about safe firearm handling, understanding how firearms work, not just simply as a one-time gun course, but as a part of a lifestyle, a part of a habit, so they have a better understanding. Eliminate a lot of the small problems, eliminate those tiny things that people don't think about now, and you'll have less of a problem later on. Change the mindset, not simply of either you're against guns or you're for guns, but understanding that guns by themselves are not bad. The actions and intent of the people using them, that's where the issue is. Focusing on that, shifting the mindset to say we as Americans can have firearms, we can possess firearms, we can have all different types of firearms because we have an understanding of what they can do. We understand the cause and the action. We're aware that we have a responsibility for our individual selves and the things that we do, but we also understand that we can collectively, effectively change that mindset and change the direction that we're going in together. It doesn't have to be one person bears the weight on their shoulder and off they go. It's we all work at this and we all come to that solution together. We can't simply say, gun owners, you're responsible for this. This is all your fault, because it's not. You can get rid of advertisements, you can get rid of, online programs, you can get rid of all the YouTube channels that even talk about firearms. That doesn't change their existence. That doesn't change the fact that they are here and have been here and that people are aware of them. Maybe in 40, 50 years, you'll have people that don't know anything about firearms. They're just some mystery object, an ancient relic of the past. But for the here and now, they exist, and there's no effectively turning that blind eye to it and pretending like, well, we banned them and so now the problem is solved, because the problem won't be solved. Fixing the mindset, correcting that understanding that it is not the firearm by itself that causes the problem. It is the disconnect of the person with the firearms, the disconnect of that person within our society. It's also the disconnect of the society around the person. Now, it is not to say that we need to go out and hold hands and sing kumbaya with everybody that we find on the street. That's not what this is about. It is about having a better understanding of the people that are in our society, both on the small scale and on the large scale, and how we can affect and interact with them for the better, for the good. I understand this was, going on, and this is a rambling video, but it's something that I feel more people need to actually think about and discuss openly. This is something that, when I say like, share, and subscribe on my videos, yeah, sure, like, share, and subscribe. But honestly, for this one, do that. Like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, talk to someone. Whether you disagree with everything that I've said, or you understand what I've said, but you're kind of on the fence, or you don't have a real understanding of what's going on, talk to someone, start listening, start interacting, start finding out what is going on in your community, what's going on around you, how things are going, and watch what's going on over these next few days, over these next few weeks, because you're going to have information coming back and forth, and you're going to have the same arguments, the same people pointing fingers at each other, yelling and screaming, and you're going to see the same level of problems not getting solved. And that's the thing. That's the sad part about it. For all the people that say they care so much, they expend an awful lot of energy, time, and money not getting anything solved. But on the same aspect, all the people that say that, they're defending their rights, their rights as an American, and their rights to live free, at the same time aren't offering any type of solution other than it's in the Constitution, and that's all I have to say about that. That's not going to fix the problem, neither way. So again, like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, talk and listen to someone. Discuss things, figure something out, come up with a better plan. If you go to someone who's supposed to be, the representative for you, and they haven't come up with something, they haven't done anything that you can see, don't go to them. Go to the next person. Vote for the next person. If you go to your mayor and you say, Mayor, we're tired of these crimes going on, and the mayor says, I understand, I'm going to get on it. Well, what the hell they've been doing? They've either gotten into office and they've done just enough to kick the can down the road, but made no real effort. Get them out. Get somebody else in there. If you have the capability, if you have the desire, and you think that you've got a better idea, a better plan, put it into motion, put it into action, start a campaign, do something other than simply sit back and say, well, it's not for me, it's out of my hands. Even if it's something simple and small as making a video, posting it up, and hoping a few people are going to watch it, and maybe some people will start and stop and think and say, okay, I see where this is going, and I kind of understand it, and I'll give it a shot. I don't know. I know, like I said before, you're going to fall into one of those 4 categories, and no matter how it plays out, the day goes on. That's all I can really say about that is the day goes on. Catch you guys later.